our last little thing here that we're going to look at is economic systems. So that's the theme of our lecture today. Let's take a look at the video questions. So write these down before you start. What are the 3 questions of allocation or basic economic questions? You should know that, but that's important for today's lecture. What are the 4 different types of economies? That's the focus of our lecture. And then how are the questions of allocation answered in each economic system? Then we're going to focus on the last of the economic systems and what are the 4 factors of production. Again, that's review. And then what are the 3 different types of mixed economies? Who owns the factors of production in each economy? So these 2, 1 and 3 are review, but they're going to help us with today's lecture. So again, we're looking at the questions of allocation, what to produce, how to produce, and for whom. Because remember, scarcity is the biggest problem facing economics. So with everything we've talked about, opportunity cost, production possibilities curve, you're now going to look at whole economies. So a little bit of macro here. And so when you're looking at economies, there's different types of economic systems that exist in the world. And each system answers the question of allocation differently. So let's take a look at the first economic system. So traditional. It is what it sounds like. It's tradition. You do what you've been taught. You do what you've been told. You're not worried about making money. You're not worried about keeping up with quota. You're not worried about, the things that a lot of capitalist societies are, or a lot what society pushes today, that you must make things fast. You're worried about preserving tradition. So with traditions, you do what you've been taught. You're worried about preserving the tradition and not making, again, money. The Inuit population in Alaska and some other populations throughout the world are like this. They're going to do it. It might be slow. It might take time, but they're worried about preserving that tradition. So in the traditional economic system, who answers the questions of allocation? Traditions answer the questions of allocation. So what to produce, how to produce, and for whom, you just follow tradition. The next one's kind of simple. It's command. In a command economic system, the government tells you what to do. So if the government tells you what to do, then who answers the questions of allocation in this type of economic system? Well, the government would. So the government answers the question of allocation. Think of old Russia. Think of China, examples of this. The communist way. The government tells you what to produce, how to produce, and for whom. The next, and this should be 3, but just keynote words are funny, is market. And you're worried about making money. You're worried about production. You're worried about keeping up with the next person in business. This is what you're worried about. So I put in here, individuals answer the questions of allocation. The people do. Not the government, the people. The U.S. is an example of this, but this is not necessarily our economic system. And the last one is mixed. And the mixed economic system basically just means you have parts of market, you have parts of traditions, and you have parts of command in your economy. This is basically throughout the world what everybody is. You might emphasize traditions in your mixed economy, you might emphasize command in your mixed economy, or you might emphasize market in your mixed economy. The United States is a mixed market economy, and again, with the emphasis being on that of the market. So with the mix, though, we look at, instead of, again, who's answering the question of allocation, because the questions of allocation are going to be answered by all of them. That's why it's mixed. Does that make sense? The questions of allocation would be answered by traditions. At sometimes they'd be answered through the government a little bit, and then individuals as well. So we look at who owns the factors of production in the different mixed economies. So let's take a look at factors of production. You got land, natural resources, labor, human resources, capital, money, machines, whatever you use to make your product, entrepreneurs or risk takers, and small business owners. So again, going back to the mixed economies, there's 3 different types. And with authoritative socialism, look at the word authoritative socialism. This is another way of saying communism. And so who owns, in a communist society, who owns the factors of production? It is the government. In democratic socialism, think of this. Democratic means the people. Socialism means government. So the government and the people own the factors of production. Typically, a lot of Western countries in Europe are like this. And when you don't think of like Sweden, when you're like this, you're going to pay high taxes, but the government will offer you goods. In capitalism, I put a star like this because that's what the United States is. The individuals own the factors of production. The only problem is that when the individuals own it, you're going to have this disparity between, with economic, the difference between economic inequality, the difference between the poor and the rich, and it's growing a lot as you see it in our society today. So capitalism does have its drawbacks. Each one of these has, a benefit, I guess. In the authoritative socialism, you know what you're doing. In democratic socialism, the government helps you more. In capitalism, you have the freedom to succeed. Depends upon how hard you work, but also sometimes you're not given the same chances as other individuals. So, capitalism, individuals own the factors of production. Alrighty, so that's it. We'll review this in class a little bit today, and we'll watch this in class today. Hope you had a great weekend.